Good evening. Welcome on this Friday, May 10th, 2019. I'm your host, Varpilah Chase. Today's big topic today will be the whole student loan debt crisis, as some will call it, arguably so. And so today I'll be talking about that, what it is, how we got to it, and some of the ins and outs about it so that, you can make your own decisions based on what you think should happen, and so much and once over. Hopefully I'll be joined here later on, but until then, I'll get going. Excuse me while I get this. So, student loans, we're talking about specifically the US here. So, student loans are a form of financial aid used to help students access higher education. So the student loan debt in the US has been growing rapidly since 2006, rising to nearly 1.56 trillion. And actually, I had a student debt counter before I got here. And it's currently at 1.532 trillion as of when I wrote this earlier today, as for this number. So, which is approximately roughly 7.5% of GDP. Now, the loans usually are repaid in contrast to other forms of financial aid, such as scholarships, which don't have to be paid back, grants, which really have to be paid, and such things as that. So, research indicates the increased usage of student loans has been a significant factor in college costs increases. So, US leaders have acknowledged the rise in student loan debt as a crisis, arguably rightfully so. And so the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, has noted that the federal student aid portfolio is nearly 10% of our current nation's debt. So I am welcomed here by my co-host here, Jacob Rodriguez, and as he gets settled in, we'll talk about that. I'll continue to keep going. So approximately 45 million people have student loan debt. In 2018, the average student loan borrower owed approximately $37,172 in student loans at the time of graduation, which is an increase of $20,000 from 2005. In 2017, Americans owed approximately $552 billion more on student loan debt than they owed on credit card debt. Now, I'd like to introduce you my co-host, Jacob Rodriguez.
How's it going?
So I just talking about what the student loans is, what it is, and so it's kind of the ins and outs of what the debt crisis has been growing and what it's all about. So I'll finish before we start getting to our discussion. The student loan debt is unevenly distributed. Approximately 30% of all college students do not incur debt. Student loan defaults are disproportionately concentrated in the for-profit college sector. And the schools with the highest amount of student loan debt are University of Phoenix, Walden University, Nova Southeastern University, Capella University, and Strayer University. In 2018, the National Center for Education Statistics reported that the 12-year student loan default rate for for-profit colleges was 52%. The 12-year student loan default rate for African Americans, sorry Hispanics, I don't have you on this currently, is going to for-profit colleges was approximately 65.7%. And so in 2018, Brookings Institution study projected that nearly 40% of students who took out loans in 2004 may default by 2023. So that's just a quick overview of the whole student loans in the US. And I have a feeling that you have a lot to say.
Yeah,
So,
I think you and I have talked about this in person a couple times where is it the next crash? And you and I believe that it is. Similar to the 2008 housing crash, we've seen similar defaults with investors investing in housing, and then people are able to afford the house, and then they're now paying for more than the house is worth, then they have to default on that house. Then we see this continue to bubble up and then explode. I personally believe that this is something that we're going to be seeing with the student loan debt crisis, where you have college students who are making the decision, where do I go to college after high school and take the chance on taking out a bunch of loans, or do I not go to college and risk not getting the type of salary I need to survive on my own? So right now we're seeing a similar crisis but it's with younger people now, and that's if people would want to invest on themselves wanting to go to school. And I think that, I think for me personally, I think that a type of forgiveness needs to be done for these types of students who invest on themselves, that want to pursue further education outside of high school and just try to make a living when they graduate college and not be have such a burden on debt.
Interesting that you say that. I actually have some actual numbers that we can talk about. So, for example, it takes approximately, a lot of the loans are expected to take 10 years to repay back. What's been found is it's taking more like 19.7 years. And so 1 in 4 Americans, approximately 44.7 million Americans, the average student debt, $37,172. The average student loan payment is $393. So I contrasted that with the median income, which I had for 2017, is $61,372. Now that's the median income, which is about 7.68% of the gross income if you're paying the $393. And if you take out 25% tax, effective tax rate, that's about 10.25%. That's if you're making the median income. As you and I both know,
Yeah.
you're not making median income when
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're real lucky. So that 10.25% is going to be much higher, especially if you cut that 61,000 in half. That 10.25 jumps up to 20% of your net income that's just gone straight to college debt loan. So now some of the things that the reason why we're calling this kind of the crisis right now is because it's currently at $1.5 trillion, which we said was about 7% of the GDP. But some of the interesting things about it in comparison to, say, credit card loan debt is most college loans don't go away if you declare bankruptcy. So that's one of the things. It's very, very hard to get your college debt to go away if you declare bankruptcy. So you have a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 loan, you go bankrupt, that's going to follow you throughout your bankruptcy.
Exactly. And, I think that what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to borrowing money is that, on top of that, you have to pay interest on it. And you continue to do that while being in debt, while trying to look for a job, while trying to just get yourself settled into a life outside of college. And that's just another burden and stress. Something that I don't really understand is how older generations like to beat down on the younger generations. They tell us, if you work hard, you can go to college, get a good degree and get a good job. Well, I mean, yeah, that's what we hope for. But a lot of the cases, college is now getting more and more expensive. Wages are stagnant since the 80s. And if we do graduate, we have a lot of debt. And now how are we going to get a job if a lot of people are competing for the same thing? I mean, yeah, we will work hard, but that can only take us so far. If students continue to go on with debt, they're going to have a hard time buying a house. They're going to have a hard time getting a car. They're going to have a hard time spending on things you need in order to have a booming economy.
Right. Speaking of the house thing and the whole booming economy, this whole debt thing is going to essentially frame drag our economy. I mean, if you're spending about $400 a month, which let's call it $5,000 a year, as a college student, 24, 25, doesn't really matter what age, where's that $5,000 a year going to? It could go to a lot of things. One thing I was arguing today with coworkers was that $5,000 is a lot of money. That's a good down payment for a car, a house, pretty much anything.
I'll take $5,000.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'll take $5,000. So if that's just being going away just to pay off debt that you may or may not be able to pay off anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah, So right here I got lots of criticism of the whole U.S. student loan program.
Oh boy, here we go.
Oh yeah, this is so much. I'll try not to eat up too much. Interrupt me, please.
Go for it.
So in 1987, then Secretary of Education William Bennett, he argued increases in financial aid in recent years have enabled colleges and universities blithely to raise their tuitions, confident that the federal loan subsidies will help cushion the increase. Duh, you said that earlier.
Yeah.
So this statement came to be known as the Bennett hypothesis. And in July 2015, which was then revised in March 2016, a staff report was published by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the conclusions of which indicate that institutions more exposed to increases in student loan program maximums tend to respond with disproportionate raises in tuition prices. Duh. If you know, as a banking institution, that, hey, all the loans we're going to give out are A, federally backed and secured, and B, has to be paid back, why would you not give it to them?
Exactly. And I'm going to give credit to someone I don't think you're going to expect me to give credit to, but Tucker Carlson from Fox News. He actually talked about this topic.
Yep.
And, those who are saying, are probably on the opposite side of me, on the right side, this is what he said. So I'm hoping he backs up either a left-wing candidate for saying this, but he said that, yeah, students are making this difficult choice. Like, they're having like a partnership with colleges. I will do the 4 years, pay this, and you will help me do this. It's a partnership. But right now with colleges, it's you pay us, and we keep all that, regardless if you drop out or not. It's a one-way partnership when it should be a two-way partnership. So it just feeds onto our colleges looking for the best interest as for the students, or they're looking for the best interest of themselves, which is milking the students as much money as possible.
I'm going to interrupt you on that one because I actually have something for that. So, Sallie Mae, they're currently in court filings. They're arguing that they have no duty to act in the best interests of the student loan debtors. They're actually arguing that in the court filings. And then currently under Betsy DeVos, who's the head of education, she and the education Department of Education is trying to stop sharing complaints about lenders to the CFPB, which I believe is the Consumer Federal Protection Board. And they're trying to get student loan services excluded from all state consumer laws. So back to what you're saying, yeah, they're trying.
Yeah. But I think that this is a topic that is not talked about enough. And it's funny because whenever we have a discussion about going to war with someone or invading or even cutting funding for the millionaires or the billionaires of this country, there seems to be unlimited money there. But when it comes to forgiving or even relocating that money to help students with their student loan debt, there doesn't seem to be any money there involved. Like, we give $80 billion in corporate welfare, and we give $4 billion to ExxonMobil. It seems like that type of money can be relocated to invest in our students. So in the end, people like to think of things in the short term. In the long term, that will benefit the economy in the future rather than just think about the right now.
Mm-hmm. So continue with the whole criticism here. Mm-hmm. So federal student loan programs, they've been criticized, though, for not adjusting interest rates. Now, we all know from the capital markets, if you go out for a loan, they're gonna look at your credit worthiness, and so you get your interest rates get adjusted based on your credit worthiness, whether it's rightfully or it's fairly done so or not. That's not the point of the search. But regardless, you go out for a loan, they look at your credit worthiness, they give you interest rate. So criticism is the student loans don't have adjusting interest rate. They have a flat rate, and they just give it to anyone and everyone, anyone and everyone, really. Recent research indicates that while high levels of student loan debt coupled with high default rates present a number of challenges for individual student loan borrowers and for the federal government, which must cover the default through taxes, they do not necessarily place a substantial burden on society at large, which is interesting when I read that, and I had to think about multiple times, and I'm still thinking about it and what that actually means. I'm hoping you can clear that for me. Because right now, the way I look at the whole student loan thing, especially from the libertarian side, is that it's, or at least my version, I'm sure us libertarians are going to argue this till the sun goes away. But in terms of education, it is one of the few things that should be covered under society, because it actually has benefits to all society. A smarter society is a more free society. And it's hard to be dumb and free. Mm-hmm. You're easily manipulated, easily controlled, as the saying goes.
Yeah, I mean, just to bring this up, other countries don't have this problem. Other countries do not have student loan debt and have this continuation of making money off of the lower end people who need to pay interest, pay like years and years of debt to finally pay it off. And after 10 years, you pay it off. Great.
It's closer to 20, actually.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, you're spending a significant amount of time paying off of something you did 10 to 20 years ago, and for what? Now you have your degree, you have what you want. People in the past don't have to do that. People in the past didn't have to do that. It's just today's generation, millennials, they have to do this. They have to take the burden, and we're also getting blamed for it. Like, why aren't you spending the money that you spend, that you should be spending? Well, because we have these ties around these ankles that are weighing us down so much.
Yeah. Speaking, now that you said that, it's one of those things, I just did the math in my head. Imagine paying $5,000 a year for 20 years. You know, that's, in case anyone hasn't done the math, that's $60,000. I mean, that's a very, well, that's a pretty good sizable amount for a house, which could be used for the economy. Or $60,000 a year, that's 2 cars, or 1 car if you're like me.
Yeah.
So, but instead, it's essentially being used to pay back the banks. And we've already went through one bank crisis before. They definitely don't need more of taxpayer money.
No.
So, actually, now that you remind me, unsurprisingly, it's Democrats who are taking the lead on attempting to fix this problem. So one is Democratic Senator, redundant since we already know who she is, Elizabeth Warren. She came out with her policy. She actually has a detailed policy. Essentially, where hers says is they're going to pay back anyone who makes less than $100,000. They're going to get up to $50,000 of their debt waived off.
Yeah.
Anyone from you have that?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
You got it, so
what Elizabeth Warren has said, and she's one of the only candidates who's actually talked about forgiving student loan debt. And right now, the student loan debt, as you mentioned before, is $1.25 trillion. And she wants to reshape higher education by canceling student loan debt and getting rid of tuition at every public college. So how she's going to do this? She's going to get rid of at least $50,000 of debt for every person that makes under $100,000 every year. So that's 75% of the people who owe debt. If you're making between $100,000 and $250,000, a portion of your debt is going to be forgiven. Now, anyone that makes above that, you are doing just fine. Yeah, you did what it's meant to do. You go get an education, and you make the money that you're supposed to, which is good. And part of the reason another way that she's going to imply this, and I know it's a lot of people don't like this, but she's going to put tax imposed, but on the ultra millionaires. So anyone that's making $50 million, anyone that's worth $50 million or more, she's going to put a 2% annual tax rate on it. Now, I don't own $50 million. You don't own $50 million.
I wish I did.
That's around
That's
around 75,000 or 7,500 families in the country. So it's going to be affecting a very little amount of people, but it's 2%. And that 2% from every family is going to help out a lot of people. And eventually, we're not going to need that 2% tax because people are going to be spending money from the education that they got. And eventually it's going to be a more booming economy, as we've been talking about so much.
Yep. Also, as we know, Senator Bernie Sanders also has a new College for All Act. It's more of a policy guideline or a policy concept at this point. So the policy will eliminate undergraduate tuition and fees at public colleges and universities, lower student loan interest rates, and allow those with existing debt to refinance their student loans. Like I said, it's a concept. At the moment, obviously, Senator Warren's was far more detailed, and for the most part, it makes sense. Of course, us libertarians would say, great, another tax. But I can at least say that this tax is justified, as opposed to numerous taxes that, well, that's a whole other conversation for that one.
She's actually not the first candidate who has talked about forgiving student loans. Back in 2016, Jill Stein actually proposed this idea.
That's right, she did.
Yeah,
That's
but
right,
of
she
course
did.
not. She didn't have the popularity, the backing to be one of the top two candidates in that race.
Yeah, that's true. So, I guess now I'll go into freestyle conversation. Is one of the concepts I've always thought of in terms of this, because you're right saying we're really the only country that has this problem. And so the two ideas I think of is either the government goes all in, very much like how the Scandinavians, well, the Europeans really do it, or as I was arguing today with someone today, is the government just completely goes out of it. It says, no, we're no longer guaranteeing, we're backing any of the student loan debts. It's all between the colleges, the banks, and the students. Now, I'm well aware what the consequences of what I just said is. So it's not like I'm just saying it to say it. But I still stand behind that part saying, yes, it needs to happen. Break the system so we can rebuild it and hopefully learn from our mistakes. Yes, I know tuition rates, well, first of all, enrollees at all major universities are going to drop like a rock. I will pick on UVM.
Yeah.
I believe earlier I was looking for the $35,000 a year for in-state tuition. So imagine if they all of a sudden 2021, we'll call it 2021, just because the federal government no longer is saying, hey, we're not backing this anymore. All your enrollees have to pay for themselves. First of all, enrollment is going to drop at least half. But how quickly do you think that tuition is going to drop to?
I think that, well, if you're going to leave it to the college, what is the college's interest in? Is it making more money off the students? Because if they make more money off the students, are they going to ask for more money? And if they are, students are going to veer off. But at the same time, students understand, I need this education. And ultimately, it's going to be on them. It's going to be their choice. So yeah, you put that on the students, colleges, you get the government out of that circle. Students are going to think twice, because the majority of the debt, the college debt, is controlled by the government. And so if you have that where, the students are smart enough to know what decisions they're going to make, regardless of what older generations think of millennials. They're smart enough to know, hey, I'm going into college. That means there's a good chance that I'm going to come out of college with this debt around me, and I'm going to have a hard time finding a job, spending money on what I need to spend on, and just living a life that I want to live. So you leave that to the college is going to be actually more so on the students' hands. So the students can organize whatever protests or whatever they think is best for them, but ultimately it's going to be between the colleges and the students, and the college is not going to make money if the students are not enrolled.
Right, yes. Well, yes, the idea behind it is when she gets the government completely out of it is, all right, this is mostly arguing for-profit schools. Obviously, if you're a not-for-profit school, you don't really matter.
Yeah.
So you pick on, like I said, I'm picking on UVM here, or my alma mater. Boom. I want $35,000. If I'm a for-profit, I need to make money, and I'm asking $35,000, and I'm only getting, say, 500 kids as opposed to the 1,500 I was before. You best believe I'm going to find ways to lower my cost.
Those kids are going to go to a different college.
Those kids are, and those exactly. So it's going to look at UVM going, oh crap, well, we need to make profits. We're going to find ways to cost cut or to lower our tuition. And I bet you a lot of those tuition fees that have been increased, as we said, was just because they know they can increase it and it's guaranteed. So now you go back to, we actually now to give for market tuition rates. Yeah, that $35,000 is going to probably be closer to 12, which is a lot more manageable for a college kid who's doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I'll pick on liberal arts majors because they're easy punching bags. So as a liberal arts major, $12,000 paying back versus $35,000 a year times 4 years. A lot different.
Yeah. And I think just going off of that, what kids major in, I don't think I think in high school they need to stress out, like, look, if you major in this is your opportunity to go here. If you don't major in this, this is where you're going to go. So when you talk about liberal arts, Yeah, it's a major that a lot of people bash in because how far can you go in that? But I mean, theoretically, how far can you go in any other job? I mean, for me, I'm a criminal justice major. I think the common path is to, okay, you graduate, you go to a police department, you apply, you go through the academy, you graduate, boom, you're there. But is that path easy? That path is not going to be easy for everyone. So I think that just going off of what you said, I think that in high school and in college itself, you're majoring this is the path you're going to go. This is the amount of money you're going to be making, particularly how much do you owe in loans. Is this going to be a good thing to put interest on those loans after paying outside of college? So I think that's another thing to talk about when talking about people who are majoring in degrees and leaving college after that.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to quick, I know we got less than the 5-minute time here, but one thing I noticed a lot of times in high school, and for me personally, I kind of wish that someone had said this, was two things. First, trade schools are never acknowledged. It's usually as an afterthought, which is surprising since we need trade schools.
Yeah.
I mean, electricians, carpenters, plumbers, the whole gamut. So try to do any housework without a tradesman of some sort, and you'll quickly find out. I know my dad does some of the plumbing. You will not see me, when they say, oh, I'm a real man, I am not a real man. Mm-hmm. You will not see me plumbing. I can do carpentry work and stuff, but
everyone has their skills.
Yeah, everyone exactly. Mine is not plumbing. But so one thing I always like to see, at least in high school, is trade schools are schools too, and I think they should also get covered. I know they're not necessarily covered in a lot of these student loans or a lot of these FAFSA programs and all that, which they should be. Mm-hmm. Welders and all that, because a lot of times those guys make as good, if not better money than regular, outside of like architecture. So granted you're going to spend about 150, 200.
It's an investment. Yeah. You're spending money in order to make money in the future, and that money is not guaranteed a lot of the time.
That money is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
So, but the second point is actually a teacher once told me in high school, one of the things is my junior or senior year, it doesn't really matter, but he stressed, when you get to college, a lot of college kids sometimes like to take a year off, as equals to find themselves. Mm-hmm. And that always stuck with me. It's like, he always said, don't do that. Yeah. You're pretty much wasting.
Keep looking.
Yeah,
you're never gonna find.
Yes,
I mean, people sometimes need their time to establish what they want to do in the future, and it's just a shame that we're telling an 18-year-old, what do you want to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah, which I think his point was, yes, if you're going to go find yourself, do that before college. Don't waste $35,000 of your parents' soon to be your money just to, if you want to go backpack, go to what's that random place in Asia, the ruins.
Ancient ruins, or the Buddhists?
The one in like the
Doctor Strange? Is that what you're talking about?
I can't think. I can never think of it because whenever I'm on Instagram, it's always it's some random white girl's like, oh my God, I'm in Thailand watching the I can't even think of it now, but it's the ruins, and as soon as we go offline, I'm going to think of it. That's exactly how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But anywho, let's giving the 1-minute timer here. So I'll let you close off.
Yeah, so student loan debt is definitely an issue that a lot of people need to be talking about because it's investing on the younger generation so the overall economy can thrive. I think that a lot of people need to eliminate the factor that these younger generations are lazy when they're brought into a world where it's a lot more difficult to thrive on the economy when you have so much debt. And we need to look at politicians and leaders who are going to attack that. I think the last quote that we end on is a quote that Elizabeth Warren said herself about student loan debt is the enormous student debt burden weighing down our economy is not the result of laziness or irresponsibility. It's a result of a government that has consistently put the interests of the wealthy and the well-connected over the interests of the working families.
All right, and with that, I'm pretty sure our time is up. So good night, have a good day, good weekend, and don't do anything I wouldn't do.